صاحب الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف الثالثة بأعلى أصواتكم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We talked in the last few nights about the journey of Imam Hussein alayhi salam from Medina to Karbala. And we tried to, rather than just looking at it as a series of historical events, that we just remember and some sort of memorize, to go a step further and try to reflect on those events and try to relate that to ourselves now and see that we as individuals and as a community and as a family units living in society, are we a good reflective mirrors of those principles that were lived through that journey? Or are we something else, totally foreign to all those concepts and principles? And that is the most important question that every one of us is supposed to ask himself or herself. Last night we tried to use a primer example, which was Muslim Aqil. We touched upon a very brief account on the stance that he did in different situations during his mission in Kufa. And we talked about him being an ordinary, normal man, like myself, like yourself, who had to face huge challenges. But then how he reacted to those challenges and how he put his principle into practice, these two things, how to perceive your surrounding world and how to react to it, would make or break a man. And then towards the end of the lecture we compared him with another personality, Umar ibn Sa'd. And the question that I wanted everyone to ask themselves, and I hope that everyone after the lecture asks themselves, is, do I in my daily lives represent Muslim or Umar ibn Sa'd? And that's the question. Today I want to use a much bigger picture. I want to look at the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And why am I choosing them rather than talking about Imam Hussein himself? Inshallah we'll talk about Imam Hussein later. Because they were men and women like me and you and every one of us. They weren't anything special to start with. They didn't have any special connections to some divine kind of wisdom, some divine veil that was protecting them. They were men and women like me and you, who lived their lives. They were exactly the same men and women who killed Imam Hussein. The same personality, not the same personalities as person, but the same people. They belong to the same families, the same tribes, the same way of life, the same society. Umar ibn Sa'd lived exactly in the same circumstances that Muslim Aqil lived in. There was nothing special that was different about them. It's just who stood for what's right and who stood for what's wrong. The companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, these individuals, if we look at them, they are a mixture. Amongst them you find the non-Muslims. This is very interesting if we actually study the companions' lives. You see the non-Muslims, you see the non-Shia, you see the Shia, you see the devotees, you see the people who didn't even care about religion prior to that day. You see men, you see women, you see young, you see old, you see Persian, you see Arab, you see African. It's a mixture. It's a nice mixture of every ethnicity, every age group, every background, and every religion we can think of in Arabia back then. I'd like to illustrate my point by going through three companions to show you the mix and the effect that Imam Hussein had on them. And that's the effect that you're supposed to have on each one of us. Because at the end of the day, every single day we state, either through our hearts or actually we say it with our tongues, we say, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fa'afuz fawzan 'azima. I wish that I was with you so that I would have achieved a great victory like you. But how did they achieve that great victory? Actually, to connect it more to ourselves, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, the great companion of the Prophet, when he arrived on the 40th day of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to Karbala, and he came next to the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he had that great conversation with the Imam. Atiyah was with him, another companion. And he says Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari talked, like in his ziyarah, to the companions of Hussein and said, we were with you and we will be with you in paradise. So Atiyah goes to Jabir, what are you talking about? We did not ride a horse, we didn't go and climb a mountain, we didn't go to war, we did nothing. And these men, they were beheaded, they were torn into pieces, they lost everything, and they for the sake of Allah. How are we rewarded the same as them? How does that even make sense? He answers them by saying, I've heard my beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said, من رضى عمل قوم حشره الله معهم. Whoever accepted the deeds of some people, God will make sure He's with them in the heavens. See what accepted means. It doesn't mean I accept because I'm sitting in during Ashura for 10 days and I'm going, yeah, they were great people, or as possibly the younger generation say, yeah, they were cool, they really had very nice, brave personalities, they faced death with absolute, desire to die for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of their iman. But then as soon as we leave the mosque and Husseinias, that's the end of it. And to be honest, I'm guilty in this as much as everyone else. And there's no blame game, but rather self-reflection on ourselves. The first companion that let's shed some light on him was Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn was Uthmani al-Hawa. That means he was not a follower of Ahlul Bayt. No, goes more extent more. He was a devotee opposition. So he believed in the Khilafah of Bani Umayyah. So he was not only not a follower of Hussein, he actually was in the opposing camp of Hussein. And this is very important for us to actually understand. When the Imam was leading his caravan towards Kufa, coming from Mecca, Zuhair had his own caravan. And by the way, Zuhair was not a normal personality. He was a very, very well-known person in Islam. He was a warrior. He was a tribal leader. He was a man of a great standing in the society. He wasn't just like a normal, ordinary man, everyday life. that being with Imam or not being with Imam for him wouldn't make a difference. No, for him, being with the Imam or being against him had consequences. And it had consequences not only in his immediate life, consequences on society, because he played a big role in society of Iraq back then. So he ordered his caravan, Zuhair, to make sure they don't meet Hussein. He doesn't want to meet him even. He doesn't want to meet him even. Concentrate on this, because you're going to find out what happens later. Until they reached a pathway where they had to camp next to each other. There was no other choice. The path that leads to Iraq has to go through that passage. They camped next to Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein sent someone to go to Zuhair and tell him, the son of the Prophet wants you. When that news came to him, he says himself, it was the harshest day of his life. That's how much he didn't want to see Hussein. I don't want to see you. You sent me a convoy to ask me to go to see you. Like, I don't want to see you, you know. His wife, and that's the importance of that's the importance of choosing a partner and a companion in life that actually has ethics. A companion that would always remind you to stay on the right direction. A companion that would back you up to be on that path. And I'm talking about path of ethics, path of being yourself in a good way. Not a path where you don't like, no, a path that you would desire to be in. So she tells him, Zuhair, the son of the daughter of the prophets calls you and you don't answer him? Go listen to him. You didn't like it. You just excuse yourself and leave. How difficult is that? Give him a chance. Alright, don't follow him. Give him a chance. Listen up. That's the problem what we have everyday life. We don't listen. We act. We talk. We don't listen. We don't let someone finish their sentence. No, you're wrong. Well, let me finish first, and then you judge me. So, Zuhair decides to go and meet Imam Hussein. Well, in every step on the way, he did not want to go. After a couple of hours, he comes back to his camp. And he tells his wife, pack and go. What's happening? He looks at his servant and goes, prepare my horse, prepare my clothes, prepare my sword. What's going on? He said, I'm going and joining Hussein. Change of heart within 2 hours? What did he tell you? Don't worry. Don't worry. That's a man of reason, by the way. Not every man can be changed within 2 hours. So his wife starts crying and says, you want to go and be an assistance to the men of the family of the prophets, and you don't want to allow me to be of assistance to the ladies of the family of the prophet? How is that fair? And that's basically, it reminds us of these choices that we have to make in our daily lives. Zuhair joined the camp of Hussein. Alright, he joined the camp. You expect him, alright, he's going to do it, he's going to help Imam Hussein, he'll be one of the companions. No, on the eve of Ashura, when Imam Hussein stood in front of all his companions, and there were only 72, while the army, the opposing army of Umar ibn Sa'd, the least estimate is 30,000 soldiers with one single aim to kill Hussein. Please concentrate on this, because we have to actually live the moment. One aim to kill Hussein at any cost. Whoever stands on their path shall be killed. It's a simple aim that they had. Imam Hussein looks at his companion and says, اتخذوا هذا الليل جملا. Use this dark night for you to run away. وأنتم في حل من بيعتي. And I give you permission, don't worry about your allegiance that you give to me. He let them free. Don't worry. I guarantee your positions in paradise. Go away. The people don't want anyone except me. They kill me, that's it. Done. Why would you kill yourselves? Zuhair was the first person to stand up. It wasn't Habib who stood up, the companion of the Prophet and the leader of the companions of Imam Hussein. It wasn't anyone from the family that stood up. Zuhair was the first person to stand up and says, oh, Ya Aba Abdullah, if they kill me, then they cut me into pieces and they burn me and then they spread my dust in the desert and repeat that 70 times, I will not leave you. How can I leave you when it's only one death? That's a man who belonged to the opposing party just a couple of days ago. Couple of days ago. That wasn't a year. It wasn't 2 years. These days a scholar can be with us for 10 years and we don't appreciate him. That's a man who reflects. A man who sees beyond the immediate interest that he has. And that's how we should be. I'm not talking about only on religious matters. In every single day of life. We mentioned a few nights ago, when Imam alayhi salam, the army of 1,000 knights arrived thirsty and he had to just leave them to be thirsty and they would have all died off. He orders his companions to give them water. And when the companions resist, why would you feed your own enemy? You don't send assassins because you want to take care of the person, you want to kill him. Imam pours water in his holy hand and he gives it to the horses and the knights. That's the ethics of Hussein. And that's his stance that made his companions change. A second companion is Wahab, who was a Christian. He was a Christian. He converted to Islam and died within an hour. Within an hour. Because he couldn't believe the story, what's happening in Karbala in front of his own eyes. A man standing like this, not seeking it to... By the way, Imam Hussein did not seek violence. He didn't start a war. He was not seeking to start a war. Imam wasn't a rebel in the sense of being a troublemaker. He just wanted reform. But the reform he wanted is from within. And the reform that he was seeking still exists. And we are the people who are supposed to follow that reform. He wanted the reform that Zuhair went through. That's the reform he wanted. Let's go a few nights before, or a few days before Ashura. When the news of Muslim Aqil's murder reached Imam Hussein alayhi salam, how did Imam react to it? He got a piece of paper and a pen and wrote on it, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Muslim bin Aqil, Khan ibn Urwa, and Abdullah ibn Muqta had been killed, and their bodies were dragged in the markets of Kufa. Our Shia have deserted us. Please leave. And he gives it to someone to read it, and Imam stays in the tent. Why? He wanted to give people a choice. He He wanted to be clear and very, very clear with them. We're not going for the government. We're not going to gain anything. We're facing death. The narrator, after stating that statement and how they read it, straight away says, people started leaving towards the left and the right. That was dust in the air that you can't see who was leaving and who stayed behind. By end of the day, thousands of people who were in Imam Hussein's camp, only the 18 from his own family, and the few companions that most of them actually came with him from Medina. Couple of extras left. What happened to all those thousands? They weren't like me and you, by the way. They weren't any different. The 72 didn't become 72 before the day of Ashura. They became 72 because of their actions in the day of Ashura. And that's the quality Imam wanted, not the quantity. Then the day of Ashura came, and these 72 were put into the test. Let's see what you're going to do about it. Muslim ibn Awsaja, one of the great leaders of Kufa, who was in Imam Hussein's camp, he fell to the ground and he was the first martyr on the day of Ashura. He was dying in his last moments. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, along with Habib ibn Mudahir, the best friend of Muslim ibn Awsaja, arrived next to him. Habib gets close to Muslim, ask him, oh my brother, I wish I knew that I would live after you, so that I ask you for your will and I apply it. But how can I ask you when I would be following you in just moments? Muslim looks at him and says, I don't want a will. My will is only one, this man. The last moments of his life, he's cut into pieces. He's bleeding to death. And the only will he has is this man. By the way, when he said this man, Imam Hussein represented not only being the Imam, he represented every single goodness in humanity. Every single quality and characteristics in humanity. So his will was for me and you to keep those ethics alive in our daily lives. In our daily lives. Whether we are treating our own families, our own mothers or fathers or partners or brothers or sisters, or whether we are talking to actually the others, those that are within our society, being Muslim and non-Muslim alike. That's what sets them apart. And that was the legacy that these companions left behind. Another example, and I will end with this, is Wahab. Because we have to always remember the dedication and the commitment of the ladies on the day of Ashura as well. We just mentioned that Wahab was killed. So when he was killed, the enemy threw his head towards the camp of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. She grabbed the head of her son and she threw it at the enemy, hitting one of their soldiers. Then she took a big stand of the tent, and she went towards the enemy trying to fight. And she was reciting poetry in Arabic, saying, I am an old woman, but my stance makes me stronger than you are and braver than you are because of Hussein. And she actually hit a couple of soldiers before Imam comes and asks her to go back to the camp and says that there is no jihad for a woman. And Imam actually prayed for her and thanked her for what she did. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the strength and the wisdom to be able to apply those principles in our lives, to be role models in our society by actually being like Hussein and the companions of Hussein in every single day of life. If Hussein influenced people to follow him through action, we're supposed to do that as well. When we state a word, we should think of the consequences of that word. And then when we turn it into action, we have to think of the consequences in this life and the hereafter. Especially if we want to be amongst the followers of his grandson, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all to be his followers and to be on their path in this life and the hereafter. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now before I end, we actually have a book which is Who and Why Islamic Creed Answers. It's by His Eminence Ayatollah Ansari, Sheikh, and it was translated into English. It's a very nice book about talking about our basic beliefs, and then building on that to talk about our duties in this life, and talking about our interactions with ourselves, with our Lord, and with the society. It's a very nice book. It's a gift from him to whoever speaks English in the audience. Of course, donations are always welcome. If you like for these projects to continue, you can pass them on. But it's a gift for under the name of Imam Hussein. And please, I ask you to actually read it and try to understand the meanings that we have in Islam. I will leave the books on the disc here. Anyone likes to take a copy is welcome to take one. And if you like to put your donations in the box, then that would be appreciated, because at the end of the day they actually costed a bit. But inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all strength to work together to serve the cause of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and bringing goodness to the humanity. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.